Hello everyone, it's Matt from Akuma Mods, back again with a review of an interesting printer. This one is called the HiEHA SQ1. And I know a lot of people are probably going to say, well, what printer is that? That's kind of a strange printer. And it is. It's strange in a lot of ways because, well, first off, I do believe as of making this video, current Amazon stock is completely out. I actually don't know if the company is even still around, unfortunately. So I guess doing a review video on this is kind of a moot point. But I figured I'd get it out there and do some justice with it because, you know, these are really, really cool printers. And like I said, I think they're quite interesting in terms of being unique and different than, you know, your normal everyday printer that you see, like the Elegoo Mars, the Anycubic Photon, the Creality LVR, you know, printers like that. So one thing you guys will notice that this printer is very, very small. While it's got a wide build plate area and kind of like a normal build plate, the Z height, as you can clearly see, is vastly smaller than, you know, the normal printers that are out today. So I've had this printer for over 8 months now, so it's kind of a delayed review, so my apologies on that. You know, when I got this printer, it was an Amazon return, but there was very few things wrong with it. It just needed some wiring done. It was shipping issues. So anyway, but for the most part, this is what the printer looks like. There's nothing really changed about it. These were quite expensive when they came out. At the time when I got this printer, they were $500, which was a lot more than, you know, the Elegoo Mars and the Anycubic Photon at the time. And those were like the two big ones on the market at that point. I think Anycubic was just dropping the Photon S, if I'm not mistaken, or it was just new at the time I got this. But anyway, so some unique things about this is, you know, that make it different than the other, I would call budget printers, is this is set up heavy duty. This is more of a dental style / industrial printer, I would say, because it has some features on it that put it a step above, you know, your normal printers that you see nowadays. So a couple things is the construction is all metal. Now I know you can argue with me like, yeah, these printers are all metal, like this Creality is, yes, but this is a little different. This is like heavy duty metal. This printer probably weighs twice as much as this Creality. And what's funny is there's less stuff inside of this printer than there is in the Creality. So with that being said, you know, it boils down to a lot of things. The build plate is a heavier duty. As you can see, it's very, very thick. It's not your typical thin build plate like most of the printers have nowadays. The Z-axis, while it looks the same, it is much, much thicker, and it is a heavy duty aluminum. I'll get that for the over the seas guys. But it does have some other things that put it a step above those type of printers. First off, it's got a dual linear rail on it. And it's not like just some cheap linear rail that you know, a Chinese company made. I mean, it is kind of a Chinese company. It's made in Taiwan. It's HiWin or HWin. So they're not like cheap linear rails. So they're definitely higher end quality. The same thing with the Z end stops. They're very specific about it, and they're sensory. And at the time, you know, there weren't many printers out that had that. And then one of the biggest things that puts this a step above is that it uses Nano Dlp. Now, I know a lot of people are wondering, well, what's Nano Dlp? Well, that is a online software that lets you completely control the printer, and as well also has a built-in slicer in it. So it's kind of nice. It's an all-in-one piece. I will say that this system's a little bit more locked down on the Nano Dlp side. Excuse me, but I think you could load up regular Nano Dlp. You just need to tweak some settings here and there to get all the innards working properly. But also going back to what's inside of this, normally these printers have lower grade LED light fixtures. Well, this has a much higher quality one, and it's proprietary to this exact printer. Maybe not so much anymore. I'm sure you can find it on the market, but at the time, like, those LED arrays were quite expensive. They were like almost $150 just for that little array, and the heatsink is like this thick. It's ridiculous because they just off-put so much heat. And then to top it all off, as you guys may or may not know, with the Nano Dlp, it utilizes and runs a Raspberry Pi 3. So with that being said, you have the ability to print via Wi-Fi, Ethernet, and via USB. So this is a pretty simple setup. As you can see, it's just your simple screen. You have your plates. That's all your information. You go to plus, and that's where you add your USB. You go into your settings. You have your Z-axis that moves, your light control, and then your back button. That's it. Very simple, straightforward setup. Nothing else. And this is by a company that specializes in these type of printers, and they made 3 versions of this. They made the HiEHA SQ1, which I have right here, the HiEHA SQ2, which is kind of like a medium-sized printer. At the time, medium-sized printers were unheard of. And then another one, which I also have on my rack right behind me, which we'll do a review video of that down the road, which is the HiEHA SQ3. Now that is a big printer. It looks exactly like this, same setup, same style. Obviously the vat is about 3 times the size of it, as well as the build plate is 3 times the size of it. So it's a very big printer. But we're more or less focusing on the SQ1 here, and some of the features that put it above the other ones. So, like I was saying, the build size is one of its downfalls, but like I said, at the time, its only direct competitors that were on the market were either printers that were way above its price range, $2,000 plus, from Frozen, or oh god, who's the other one? Frozen and God, I'm drawing a blank on that. I just can only think of Frozen right now. So there's that one, and then that's pretty much one of its direct competitors, and those were, like I said, $2,000, and you get a print size that's slightly bigger than it. But obviously, those are, again, industrial style printers. So they do, or they did, I should say, make their own resin for this as well. So they kind of pulled out all the stops with everything. So one of the things that made this different, though, is, like I said, it utilizes Nano Dlp. It does also have a different build plate style, whereas like the Elegoo Mars and the Anycubic Photon, which were the 2 closest printers, but they were much lower quality than this one, they had a swivel build plate. So they used like a ball joint style, which I personally am not a big fan of. I don't like the ball joint style. I know a lot of people are absolutely in love with them. That's perfectly fine. Everybody's entitled to their own choices. I have no problem with that. But I personally like this style build plate, where it's 4 corners and 4 little screws. So you level it, sheet of paper, put it down to 0, call it a day. Very simple to set up, and get you going. So there are profiles already pre-set up on the slicer that's on Nano Dlp. But the other cool thing about this is, let's say you don't even have that ability to print online. You just have the ability to transfer from USB to the printer. So let's say you put a file on the USB stick and you load it onto here. This will actually slice this on this printer. So not only do you have Wi-Fi capability to print and slice, you also have it non-Wi-Fi or non-connected. So that's another thing that put it way above Elegoo and Anycubic at the time, is it had an onboard slicer on it. So there's several other things that you can do to put this above and beyond the Anycubic Photon and the Elegoo Mars. And that was, like I said, since it uses Nano Dlp, you can basically load a vanilla version of Nano Dlp and then modify it to work with all the internals in it and get it up and running. And you can actually change literally everything about it. You can rearrange the entire software, firmware side on it. Like, you can put different setups on the screen here. So it was very customizable at its time. But again, the price range put it way out of, anybody's hands, because at $500, you can almost buy two Anycubic Photons or Elegoo Mars, or buy one and one, and have two printers for the price of one. That's more or less what people are going to go through. So that was one of its downsides. I know recently in the last month or so it has come down in price. The last time I did see it online was for $199. So you might be able to find them online, but I know currently, as of shooting this video, there is no Amazon stock right now. And again, I think they were kind of liquidating everything, which is unfortunate because they really had pulled out all the stops for this. They didn't really put anything low grade on this setup. And to top it all off, since it does use Nano Dlp and a Raspberry Pi, there's a good chance that you can upgrade to a mono screen and a 4K screen, because what this screen uses is an adapter board to an HDMI board. So most of the time those 4K screens need that type of adapter to go into a HDMI connection. Well, this has already got it ready to rock and roll. The only downside is this is a much smaller screen, so again, it's more proprietary to it because of the way that it's set up. Whereas usually, the Anycubic Photon and the Elegoo Mars, they have like that black strip that goes around the LCD screen. This does not have that. It's just kind of like a basic screen, and then you just use the tape to go over it. So it doesn't have that fancier look. So so that's one of the downsides on it, I guess you can call it. But more or less, this is a really beefy printer. It's probably the best around still for its price. But unfortunately, like I said, because of the market and everybody wanting the best bang for their buck, usually they end up going with something cheaper. So that's one of its biggest downfalls, I would say. But the VAT, the build plate, the dual linear rails, like everything is of the highest quality on this. They have spared no expense on making this printer the best of the best. Unfortunately, like I said, with that being out there, I think that's one of their downfalls, and that kind of closed the doors on their company, unfortunately. I'd like to see more printers like this. I personally am more attracted to a higher build quality for a little bit more money than I am for something that's a little bit lower quality, mass produced, and could possibly give me a good amount of problems over time. Whereas this thing, I've been printing with it for 8 months on and off, and ever since I did the electrical wiring, which was basically, it was a disconnection, that's all it was, I haven't had a problem with it. Not a failed print or nothing. So in fact, we actually even did the test print on it. on here. So I'm going to take this off. Yes, I know people are going to yell at me for not using gloves, but we're not going to touch the resin at all. So, but as you can see, it printed just fine. And I moved this thing around a lot, and I haven't even leveled it out or re-leveled it or anything like that. So, but yeah, I mean, you can clearly see that this isn't some cheap metal. This is heavy duty. Like I said, it's twice the weight of this unit. And this unit is much, much bigger, as you can see. So, and that's real crazy. So I would get into it and tear into it, but it's more technical to do that because there's a lot of wiring that's attached, and it's kind of like pop top, and you run the risk of breaking wires, and I don't want to be doing that, especially if the company's not around anymore, because sourcing parts for this is going to be quite difficult. But if you do happen to find one, and it's under, you know, the $250, even $300 range, if you happen to find this thing under $300, absolutely, I do suggest getting it and, you know, buying it, because it's probably the best printer you will own. Unfortunately, like I said, the downfall of it is the Z height access and some other minor things like the proprietary screen. But I mean, there's some printers that are like that, and they, you know, they're doing just fine. So if you can source out the parts for it, by all means, absolutely get this thing. So that's my thoughts and review on it. I didn't really get an unboxing from it because, well, at the time I wasn't doing unboxings or anything like that, so I don't really have a video, so I just kind of threw on the review for you and went from there. But yeah, I would say this is a far superior printer than most of the ones that are currently on the market that are sub $600 for sure. Again, going back to one of its biggest downfalls is the build volume on this is much smaller. So I always keep going back to that, and I don't think I ever told you guys what the build volume is on it, but it's 115 by 65 by only 100. So I know most of these printers are like 120 by 65 by 150 or one. This one I think is a 160 even. So while that 50 or 60 extra millimeter might not seem like a lot, to a lot of people it is. You know, you can print something like that. Well, obviously, I can't print something that tall. Like that's not that tall. That's only about the size, about 3/4 of my hand. So, but if you're printing miniatures, little figurines, you know, little things like this, absolutely, by all means, go ahead and print away, because that is absolutely worth it. And this thing, like I said, is just a monster. It continuously prints. It has failed pretty much never that I can think of. You know, it's just an all-around great printer. So unfortunately, like I said, I think the company is kind of out and away. And if they aren't, it's very hard to get a hold of them because I believe they are based in Japan. They're kind of just getting out of the resin printing community from what it seems like. So I could be wrong about that, but that just seems like what they've been pushing a lot lately. So with that being said, I hope you guys like the review. I know it's kind of, you know, so. There's not really much to say about it besides that it is the best of the best. But you know, it is kind of on the smaller side. So with that, you know, take it as it is, and you know, make your judgment on your own accord, because you know everybody can see this differently. But that's pretty much all I got to say about it. If you guys got any questions, comments, concerns, go ahead and leave them below. And you know, if you like the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you haven't, go ahead and hit the notification bell, and you know, you'll see some more videos of this coming up soon, of some other printers actually, and you know, some other stuff that we got coming in. And that's pretty much all I gotta say. Oh, one last thing. If you guys haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe. I'd like to try and get over 1,000 subscribers. That would be awesome. To actually be a YouTuber. But until next time, happy printing.